Okay, let's explore a little bit more about the number line itself. And just for our purposes right now, let's just ignore the left side. So let's just pretend like it's not even there. We're only going to look at from 0 over here to the right. What happens to the numbers as we move right along the number line? As we move to the right, our numbers get increasingly larger. True? So let me go ahead and write that here. The numbers get larger. Now, what happens as we move to the left along the number line? As we move towards the left, we can see that our numbers get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? Okay. If that is true on the right side of the number line, then that must also be true on the left side of the number line. As we move to the right, the numbers get larger. As we move to the left, the numbers get smaller. And whenever we're talking about negative numbers, that's a little bit of a more difficult concept to kind of grasp, because if we look at -2 or -4, you kind of think that 4 is bigger than 2. It's just your natural reaction. But think about it in terms of money. If you were short $2 in your checking account, or if you were short $4 in your checking account, you would actually have less money at being short $4. You're further in the hole. So that is actually a smaller number. Does that make sense? I hope so. We have to literally think about it as moving to the right, things get larger. Moving to the left, things get smaller. I want us to really keep this in mind as we're going through and learning about the positive and the negative numbers, because this concept right here is going to help us so much when we start adding and subtracting. Okay? Now, we also need to, as we're talking about the number line here, we need to talk about placement of numbers on the number line. So, let's first start out with some of the positives so we can kind of get our bearings about us. Here we have a number line that's drawn out, and the first thing we're going to do, it says graph each group of numbers on the number line. The first thing is this 5 and a fourth. Well, 5 and a fourth is a little bit more than 5. It's between 5 and 6. So if I were going to plot that, I would have to go over to 5 and then a little bit more. So 5 and 1/4 would be right about there on the number line, a quarter of the way between 5 and 6. Okay, let's try this next one. 4 and 5/9. Well, 4 and 5/9 would be a little more than 4, so maybe right about here somewhere. It would be a little more than halfway between 4 and 5. Okay, now keep this idea in mind, because now we're going to start plotting negative numbers. Now this -2 is not too bad because it's an actual identifiable place on here where we have labeled -2. So that is 2 spaces away from 0 in the negative direction. So there is our -2. The next one, it says to graph, is a +3. So now we're back on the positive side, 3 units away from 0. So here would be our 3. But for this last one, this one can be a little bit difficult. Let's think about this. If this were a positive number, if it were just 3 and 2/5, that would be 3 and then a little bit more. It would be between the 3 and the 4. Well, this just says the opposite of that. So the opposite of that would be the same distance. If I were going to go 3 and a little bit more, then the opposite of that would have to be the same distance. So it would be 3 and a little bit more in the opposite direction. So we would be right about here at -3 and 2/5.